Hello, welcome back to Talk Seagulls, and we're back at the Caxton Arms just before Christmas, and I'm joined by the Chappaqua Wrestling legend, the person who's on the intro of every single episode. If you hear the music, you'll know. Charlie, my friend.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Ryan.
That's a
Thanks
great
for having me
intro
back.
that for you, by the way.
Yeah,
You should be happy with that.
God, yeah, I'll remember that one. What a guy. Thank you so much. You get that from ChatGPT by any chance?
Yeah, actually. No, normally I'm being really abusive towards Toby or something, calling him like overrated or just a pretend Liverpool fan. But no, here we are. We're talking about Brighton and another 16 points, I think, now from winning positions that we've thrown away. Another game where we've cost it. And, you know, it's a weird position to be in, isn't it, Charlie? I mean, we're not necessarily playing terrible football, as you said to me off air, but we're not playing that well either, I think is fair to say.
Yeah, no. I think it's consistency is our big problem. Like every time, it's just there's always pockets of like really good play that's so exciting, and then it just doesn't happen. I don't know if it's because there's a lack of some of the more mature players on the pitch, so there's not much team management. Maybe feels like sometimes things are just working, and then the pace of it just changes, and it's just so confusing to watch. Feels like it's a mentality thing or a game management thing, but there's some good stuff, and then there's just some confusing stuff. I feel. Yeah.
How do you feel so far? You know, as a fan point of view. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not complete doom and gloom, as you said. We're only 3 points off Champions League spots, right? I mean, it's a weird season for us because we're in the situation of we've just spent a lot of money, and people have their arguments over how we've spent the money and whatever. But at the end of the day, we've got a squad now that's ready to compete at the highest level of this country. So for you as a fan, I mean, we were talking about it sort of as a club. I don't think we've seen many clubs in the world, if ever, that have done sort of what we've done, go from being, you know, the athletic stadium into being a, you know, European side. I mean, you said Jake was out in Japan.
Yeah, well, going out, from being at the Withdean to then being advertised on the tubes in Tokyo for the pre-season games. Yeah, the journey's incredible, and like, you know, it's a weird thing. It's like once you get a taste of like what the quality can be, and we get these outrageous results against like some of the best teams, and we just have the quality of play sometimes is just like, and quite a lot of the time is just incredible to watch. You just really, it's just so hard to accept some of the sort of like more difficult results because you have a taste of like, you know, that sort of perfect team.
Yeah.
So it's hard, but the reality is like some teams, and we came up and we got promoted, and a lot of teams at our sort of level went straight back down, or they did 2 seasons after or 3 seasons after, or they've just got problems and it's a mess. And the reality is we've got such good infrastructure, and like we're going through a bit of a tricky time now, but like let's not get ahead of ourselves. Some of the stuff you see online is so like quick to judge everyone and hate all the players individually, the manager. It's just, I think you just got to be a realist and just think like comparatively and where we've come from, like we're in a good position. 3 points off 5th place, like we've got a few injuries, there's a bit of problems, you know, but realistically we're playing some great stuff and everything's going to be all right. I'm feeling good.
Everything's going to be all right. I mean, that last 20 minutes against West Ham, there's not really a great deal of that game to talk about, apart from the last 20 minutes. And actually, I did see a little bit more improvement in how we're playing, which made me a little bit less sort of, you know, wanting to just sort of slate the side. Not that I really do that anyway, but, you know, I thought that last 20 minutes, I was quite happy with how we're, you know, really onslaughting them. I was particularly happy for Matt Weaver to get his goal, especially in the fashion that he did. It's a great finish. He had a great game, and, you know, he's had so much critics, as you say. It happens quite regularly now. If you go on Twitter, you see a lot of discourse when it comes to one sort of goal that goes in.
Discourse is putting it
very nicely. It is though, isn't it? I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I think it's part of one, modern media, two, where we're at as a club now. You know, you have to accept that fans are going to be bad as much as they're going to be good now. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean, because you've got more of them, you've got a bigger net worth of fans. So yes, you're going to have a lot more great new fans. You're going to have a lot more people that are going to the club shop. And I'm sure that, you know, could be reflected in the sales costs and God knows what else. But I think at the same time, you're then going to have a lot more negativity. You're going to have a lot more people that expect to be at the high level. You're going to have a lot more people that have only seen success.
They don't care about the journey as much.
Exactly.
You know?
Which is fine, you know, because I can't expect, I had this conversation before, you can't expect everyone to be completely knowledgeable on the history of it, because if you're a new football fan or you're somebody that's just got into watching Brighton recently and you're not that into it, you're just going to watch the games and that's about it, and that's fine. If that's the sort of football fan you are, that's all right. But I think it does push the boundary, and I was particularly happy for Mats Wiefer.
Yeah, same.
And it's a good moment for him, right, and for the team as well, just to have a bit of a, you can get over it sort of thing.
Yeah. No, it's great. And I also liked that, in a sense, it was kind of Dunk's assist, and that he was just going for it and getting stuck in.
Thought it was
and
a foul on the keeper, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one,
It
isn't
wasn't,
it?
but
yeah.
obviously I was right behind the goal, so I saw it. I thought, there's no way this counts. I
just thought it was going to be offside because if like someone was like, it was bad. I don't know who it was, but they weren't interfering. But it was nice to see that. And like, Dunk's had a bit of criticism since being back from some people.
Yeah, he has, yeah.
And, like, in a sense, like, I only understood that because we had a great run without him. And I just think that, like, Van Heck and Igor just did such a great job. But now he's back. Like, also at the Saints game, we were a bit ropey at the back, actually. Like, and then Dunk came on and really steadied the ship. And that was so good to have him back. And then now he's then coming in like really hungry for offensive like moments and making goals, and it's really good to have him back. But it's a hard one. It's not like people are looking for like one rule. It's Dunk back, like that's it. It's like it's not that. It's like there's loads of different sort of small factors. But it's a hard one. I think we just got to be patient, really.
Yeah, Dunk's I'm not too worried about. To be honest, the only thing I'm really worried about in Dunk's sense is his injury record, because he's had a bit of a rough time recently.
Yeah.
Which is to be expected. Obviously, he's getting older in his career, as much as you don't want to hear that. He is, and that's just part of it. But, in the nature of the sort of centre-back he is, in the last 15 years he's been playing for this football club, he's put his body on the line, literally, week in, week out, for years. And obviously it's going to take its toll. He's played through injuries for a long time. He is that sort of everything you want in a captain, a local boy. Lewis Dunk is that. He's an absolute legend of this football club and should go down as potentially the best player to ever play for us.
Yeah, true. Same. I agree.
Maybe Pascal will come and have an argument with that one, but I think it's not far between the two of them.
What about Zamora, man? What about
Zamora?
Yeah,
as well. I'm going to bring in the names now. Peter Ward's going to be on the other end of the line in a minute, but sure. Don't get me wrong. But I think Lewis Dunk is that personified, and yes, he's going to come in. I wouldn't say he's been that bad. I think Igor was covering well, but I think when you've got your captain back in the team, he demands the place. Do you think?
Yeah. No, I do agree, and it's like. I don't know. It was a strange one. It's just like seeing when like Igor and Van Heck together. I thought they were just so good, and they really, really dealt with the sort of the hole in the team from Dunk going, and everyone was so impressed. And like frankly, like we had better results because of it.
Yeah.
Who's to say that was because of them? I don't know. But then the Saints game, as I said, it was so ropey there, and I couldn't really work out why. I mean, they were hungry, but we were just like offensively pretty tasty, and then like they just started to break through, and then just when Dunk came back, and it was his first game back after injury, I think it was like 60 minutes, steadied the ship so much, and it was so good to see him back.
Yeah.
And like I think actually like there might have been a freak like chance from them at the end, but apart from that, as soon as he was on, it was like, oh my God, so good to have him back. So it's a tough one, but then at the same time, there's just been silly mistakes. What do you think that is? Like,
I think the silly mistakes are a collective, because actually it leads me on to that goal, which we conceded, 2 minutes later.
Yeah.
And it's in typical Brighton fashion. It's a calamity of errors. Started with JP for the second time of the week. It's not ideal for him. And I'm not getting on JP. I think he's got enough credit in the bank to get away with another mistake here, because I actually thought overall it wasn't too bad. But again, it's a mixture of everybody. I think Bart could be argue that he should have tipped that round the post. I think with the following from Purvis to Pinyan was not ideal, and all round it wasn't great. I think the calamity of errors more comes down tactically, probably, if anything. I think if it's happening to everybody, and actually this is quite a nice point. It seems like there's always a scapegoat. As I said to you, Mats Wiefer. Igor had a bit of a hard time at one point. Bart Verbruggen had a bit of a hard time, I think, against Palace, I want to say.
Yeah.
And there's sort of been a new one each week. There's always somebody to blame. There's always someone that's not had a good one. Dunk was another one. And now people are looking at Jorginho. God knows why.
Yeah,
he's had a couple bad games. I wouldn't even say he's been that bad, to be fair. I think Matoma had a hard time. And I feel like everyone's just trying to look for a scapegoat in the side all the time, trying to find the reasoning as to why these players are doing it. And I think if it's a collective error and it's always mistakes recurring, and there's maybe a lack of belief, lack of self-confidence in the side, that for me is a leadership problem. That's something that's not filtering down well enough to me. I think to be confident and in your own abilities, you see it with Mitoma sometimes, maybe doesn't take on a player as much as he should do. Minte on the other side as well. I think you saw a little bit more of that in that last 20 minutes. A bit of belief was coming back into the side.
Yeah.
I think that's been gone, and I think that's maybe where the errors are coming from. We sort of, when we concede, we think, "Oh my God, it's going to happen again," and I think that we've not quite adapted to that. And that goes back to De Zerbi days, by the way. De Zerbi, we would ship 3 goals in 20 minutes. Not even that, 15 minutes. I remember Villa away, one of the worst away days of my life, and I remember watching it, and I just thought, goal, so quick. And it was a theme. It's still there. De Zerbi's, I could say, was definitely tactical because, the way we played was so offensive. It was a bit like that Spurs game last night. I don't know if you watched it, but we would have happily gone for a 6-3. I mean, that's Brighton. And I said Postecoglou is the most Brighton manager ever on Twitter, and I meant it in the sense of it is just all or nothing. And I think, do you know what? Fine. Whereas I don't think we're quite as much all or nothing. I think ours now are weird. We don't sort of lose the ball from playing out from the back, unless it's a Bart mistake, which he did at Fulham. I think it's weird. I think that there's a genuine lack of something, a confidence somewhere. I don't know if you saw Dunk's Instagram post after the game.
What, he said, "We need you more than ever now."
Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it says what it is. It's like there's a few injuries. I think part of the problem is a mentality problem within like the really young players, is because basically if you're getting really great results against some of the bigger teams, let's say, or the more like difficult teams, and then you're not getting those on the teams that on paper we should get some points at, then it just shows that like it's basically there's too much pressure on those players, and there's not enough. I just feel like there's not enough kind of energy and like experienced players on the pitch just holding it down and trying to sort of relax everyone, because like the pressure's getting to their heads. They're playing differently. They can obviously play exceptionally well when it's right for them, but in some situations like they're just letting it go and it's just not working. And I feel like they're just missing a couple crucial players on there to steady the ship, and it's just getting a running away from itself. Because they're obviously so good, like they're so talented, but there's some problem, and I do think it's a mental problem. I don't think they're like, I think there's something where they just crumble, and as you say, they just sort of like don't have the sort of nous, or they don't have the sort of collective spirit to be like, right, let's go and we can dig deep and get through this. But at the same time, the manager's been there just since start of the season, which is relatively nothing to really
he's very young
embed
as well.
He's super young, 32.
We've got that assistant manager coming in January, which is now getting sooner rather than later, hopefully. And then I think this is the point I wanted to bring up, was the summer was a big one in the sense that we brought in a lot of good players, but we lost Lallana, we lost Pascal Gross, we lost De Zerbi's team. I think when you lose influential members of the dressing room, of the team, don't get me wrong, we still got Jason Steele, who I still think is really important. JP is growing into that leadership role really, really well, but he's still, 23? Same age as me, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I can't expect him to command the side. So maybe that experienced player is waiting somewhere. I don't know who, what, when. Do you think we're missing the Lallanas, I don't know. I don't know if it's just that or if it's a bit of a mixture of management as well.
I think when we had like Lallana and Gross there,
Gross is big,
like and especially when they're like sort of playing at the same time, you just get this sense of command, especially from Lallana. I mean, he was so vocal about it. Like, you just see him as soon as you come on, he's just commanding
always there and he's
everyone.
Always shouting.
Yeah, and I think, sorry?
During lockdown, do you remember him?
Yeah. You could just hear him all the time. And like, whenever he comes on the pitch, he was just commanding everyone. I think that really steadies the ship in the younger players there, because they're like, okay, cool. Especially when it's in like the central midfield sort of area.
Yeah.
Can really help. And I just feel like we're missing a bit of that. And like, in CISO, like, I love him, but like, he's sometimes just sort of, you can tell he kind of just like jumps rank and he just starts just acting on his own accord.
To Julio, he's actually had the last 2 games, I actually think is a lot better. I think there was a change in him in training, Hertzler said. As you know, his mental hasn't always been there. Let's put it that way, with Julio. And I think in the last two games he's looked a lot better. I've got to be honest. I think I was very critical in Cisse, and I think rightly so. I don't think he offered anywhere near enough. But particularly in the last 2 games, I think he came on and actually did change the game a little bit. He looked a little bit, more willing to go and do something, but actually he was passing to his teammates. He wasn't just shooting from 30 yards.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, you're right. I mean, like, didn't have a bad game like the other day, but there's just some areas where it's just some of the younger players are kind of just sometimes doing something completely random, I feel. And sometimes that leads to like genius goals, and like that's great. But when things are a little bit dodgy, you just kind of need it to be like make sense. Like, I don't really like. My one criticism of how we've been playing this season is I don't really understand what the strategy is as much. Like, it kind of varies in a quite confusing way. Whereas the Zerbi ball was like very much like attack.
Yeah.
And pretty much most of the time you get the results to enjoy it.
The thing is, when it wasn't good with the Zerbi, it was 6-0. It was 4-0. It was 4-0 at Luton was probably one of the worst ones I can think of.
Yeah,
right?
Everton was something like that.
Everton 6-1 at Villa. It was 4-0 at Roma. We did lose some bad games last season, but I do put a lot of that down to the quality of players that he had at his disposal last season. At the same time,
go on, name names.
No, and I think as well with this season, I agree with you. The style's maybe not there. I mean, what you said about maybe the young players wanting to go and do, crazy things. You want to see Julio have a shot. And actually I had people around me going, Julio, shoot. And I'm thinking, 2 weeks ago, you wanted this man to stop shooting. And now everyone's saying, Julio, shoot. I thought, oh my God. I mean, that just sums it up. But there's a weird vibe about it. Maybe it's a reliance on individual quality is maybe what I'd put it down to. A reliance on Jorginho to go and do something. And then when you don't see that, maybe then you start slating Jorginho. You want Mitoma to go and take on his man, bring it into the box. Maybe he's not been doing that quite so much. I think in the second half of the last game, he did do that a little bit more. Minte had a really, really good opportunity, getting in behind, using his pace. That's what you want to see from him. We know that he can do it. We saw it in pre-season. So why don't we get to see it maybe that little bit more consistently? Mats Wiefer and Carlos Baleba, a partnership that's obvious from the beginning of the season. Something that I thought was going to be the staple. Don't get me wrong. Matt Wiefer needed to be embedded because he did have his mistakes at the beginning of the season. And that, I think the man management of that has been really, really good. But there's maybe a couple of times we've profiled players slightly wrong. And, you want to see that consistency. Don't get me wrong. Hertzler's very young. And I said before, I think if you've got him, I think in 5 years' time, I think he'll be a fantastic manager. I think we'll be talking about him as being one of the greats, the good managers, right? Because he's got that time now to learn. He's in the Premier League at 31. That's ridiculous. And it's just how you go about, can you get these players up for it? Can you get Dunk out of this bad situation when he's asking for the fan support? Because I don't think I've seen Lewis Dunk ask for fan support in a long time on Twitter. And that's the only reason why I brought it up. People were saying, oh, you're reading too much into it. And I thought, I don't know. I just don't feel like I've seen Dunk ask for fans like that for a long time.
I think it's because the expectation's so high from themselves.
It is, yeah.
It's like they expect to get some outrageous results because they deserve it and they've worked hard enough for it. But it's like, and they're just not getting it. And I read that as just him being unsatisfied with how the whole team's the results been, given how good they are and what they know they can do. I don't think it's anything too like insidious or like too like, oh, like, we've got a bad manager and like there's big problems here. I don't think it's that.
Do you think we're in a grey area between knowing whether we're ready? We're in the grey area of, are we little Brighton or are we big Brighton? And I asked this question last week to Jack, because you have to act, and with it, it's a bit like a careful what you wish for sort of thing. With being a big club, a bigger club, you have to act like a big club. And if you want to act like a big club, that does mean being a bit more ruthless. That does mean heightening the expectations. That does mean maybe dropping players when they're not playing so well. That does mean it comes with the unfortunate reality of social media these days. That's fine, right? That's what it is. But then where are we at the moment? Are we in this situation of big club Brighton, or are we still small club Brighton? Because when you look around the Premier League at the moment, there's plenty of teams that are waiting for your place. We saw it with Aston Villa at the weekend beating Manchester City. We saw it with Bournemouth beating Manchester United. It's a very tough league. And yes, we're only 3 points off fifth, but that goes all the way down to 13th. You know, it's a tight league. It's a very good league. There's a lot of teams now that are trying to do project. We're one of the first to do project. So that's where I think is maybe the frustration from some people's point of views is we're the creators of this. We started all this. Bournemouth wanted to be us, right? And now they're doing better than us. Fine, right? I take my hat off to Raiola. He's done a fantastic job there. Yes, we beat them, but I do give him credit where it's due. But there's a lot of teams that are waiting for that fifth spot. And, you know, are we ready to go and get for that fifth spot? On paper, absolutely we are. But are we ready yet? I mean, what do you think? Do you think mentally we're there?
Well, there's two questions. I mean, in terms of that, like, I think it's all in the balance of how the manager's going to react. It's like, you're quite right. Like, he's young, and basically now is the time to decide, like, is he fit for this job right now at this time? Like, I think he is. I think he's a great manager.
He is. I do.
Like, I think and I don't think he's a bad manager by any means, but I do also agree that in 5 years' time, like, he's going to be unbelievable. So now is a big test for him, of course. And yeah, there's a lot of people wanting that fifth spot. We are completely good enough to get it, given what we've already done this season. Question is, can we get out of this kind of little rut? And it's a big mental battle really now. But in terms of, like, you know, our stage, like, what are we? Are we a big club? Like, what is Brighton at the moment? It's like, and the big thing for us is it really depends, like, how you look, what the time scale is for it. Because, you know, realistically, we've sold a lot of players and made a lot of money. The reality is, like, we're still getting a load of players in, we're selling players, and as long as we can stay in this kind of top half of the table situation and still be, like, very profitable as a club and bringing more and more people in, as we were talking about before we started, like, you know, getting all this worldwide acknowledgement and new fans in, and the club is growing, the brand is growing, and basically the quality of play is getting better. Like, when it's good this season, some of the stuff we've done has been incredible, and it's like everything is growing. And, like, if some things just, like, we have a bit of a knock at now and then, you just got to take a step back and just think about, like, a 10-year situation. Like, this club is unquestionably growing at a very
absolutely
great rate that so many clubs would wish for. You know, when you, like, some of the problems that some clubs have are just, like, even at, like, the biggest levels, it's so messy. So messy.
Manchester
like, we
City,
don't know
Manchester
how,
United are huge examples.
Like, it's so tricky, and it's like, and you really, really, like, you know, it's just a mess, and it's such a, like, absolute corporate, like, nightmare, and it's just like people who don't care about the club, and it's just like an absolute mess, and it will never get better, really, you know, and it will just, well, it might do. I hope it does, but. You know,
United
it's like we've got a good situation with an owner who really cares about it, and some people who are super smart, and the quality of players is great. There's some little problems, but as a fan, like, I don't think we got to be so happy in our situation, really.
No, I completely agree.
I
completely agree, and I think that's probably why my expectations are so high, because I know that if I had Tony Bloom sat on the other side of there right now, I would be saying this to him because I know that he would be thinking the same. I know that he's not thinking that we're a mid-table team this year. He's not.
No.
Right? And that's why I know if he was there, and I'm only saying what I know that he would probably agree with, 90% sure that he would say, I agree. Even if it sounds really, really harsh, if it sounds really delusional, I don't think there's such thing as delusional with Brighton anymore. No. I think that we've proven that we can break boundaries beyond everyone's wildest dreams. But it's with that comes that transitions, and with that comes its own problems, and with that also becomes the right decisions. I think it'll be an interesting end to the season. I think where we're at so far, I mean, we've obviously got Brentford next after Christmas. I think that in itself is going to be a tough game. They've got 1 point away from home this season. For reference, I think the only other team to do that is Southampton. I don't know who'd be so rubbish enough to give them a point away from home, but so this is the point.
Not us, no way.
So this is the point. It's a big, big game.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah.
I saw good signs against West Ham, and I really, really hope that we can use that again. see what we've got, right? Look at the team, look at the amount of individual quality that we've got, and see what they're best at and play them to that. I think maybe we've been guilty of maybe not doing that so much. With that also comes its own individual errors. I completely agree with that on a separate point of view. To you, Charlie, just on what you said this season, what's a failure?
Oh, failure. I think it's just the level of consistency. Although at the same time,
in terms of placement, okay, if you just scrap like visually, eye test wise, I mean, if you were to just say number wise on the table, what's a failure? What's a good season? What's an expected season? What do you think at this stage of the season now? Obviously, we've got Diego Gomez coming in January. We've got the new assistant manager coming in January.
Yeah.
I expect there'll probably be a little bit more movement on the centre backs front as well, just from thoughts. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, feel like so loaded, isn't it? It's like I would say like anywhere in the bottom half of the table. Really,
bottom half,
because of course, because it's the thing is that like on the one hand I'm like, the story, remember the story, it's like, we're at the with Dean, like, and like it's been great what we've done, everything's been great, but at some point you gotta like shake that and be like no, like we gotta aim for bigger stuff here. And it's like, and I'm torn between those two things because like when I'm feeling bad,
so we're in the grey area.
Yeah, I know. When I'm feeling bad, I'm like, oh, it's all right, things get better, and it is. But it's also like, come on, like we got to do this, and like it's just such a shame if we slip up now because some of the stuff that we've been doing is incredible. So anything that's like, anything south of 11th, I think would be awful, or 10th. I just think it would be so crushing because it's just so unnecessary.
Yeah,
it's like so avoidable at this point. Like this season does not have to go badly. No. It should go exceedingly well. It's just there's just some problem.
When you look at the two differences in squads from this season to last, and we're talking about mid-table now, I think last season's version of ourselves would have absolutely laughed at us right now in talking about mid-table because, as I said, the individual team is so good, and we know that.
Yeah,
and I think maybe they know that. Maybe we do go a little bit too passive against the smaller sides. I put that in inverted commas because we are a small side too. But going against them sort of clubs, maybe we do have too much of an arrogance. Maybe we are a bit too complacent. And with that is, a lot. But it would be a shame.
I don't know if it's even that.
But it would be a shame to lose. Sorry, just to say, for the likes of João Pedro, I can see him going in summer. Right, I can see him going to Liverpool. I can see him going to Arsenal. 100%. Both of those teams need João Pedro, and I wouldn't blame them for spending 100 million on him. But to lose João Pedro, to waste João Pedro now would be a shame. To waste Carlos Baleba would be a massive shame. To waste Kaoru Mitoma would be a massive shame. Even JP Van Hecke, there's some players in this squad that I could see going for a big, big fee. And I think that most teams in that top three, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, would bite your hand off to sign. They would love Carlos Baleba at their team. They would love Kaoru Mitoma at their team. I think that's what we want to make sure that we get the best out of these players. Obviously, they're still young. Obviously, they're still going to have their learning curves. But please get the best out of them while we got them, because there will be big teams coming and they will spend the money, and we'll have to accept it because anything over 100 million, no one can say no anyway.
So it's a shame if we have a duff season.
That's what I mean. Because they're going to go anyway.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? And to not get into a European competition with these players in our side that are comfortably European players. These are players that can play in Europe, but also get you to Europe.
Yeah.
And I think it's an incentive, right? If you get to the top 6 of the Premier League, you finish into a European competition, it's an incentive to João Pedro to say, look, mate, just stay another year. Okay, you might get triple your wages at City, but you probably get that anyway. If you have a good year in the Champions League or you have a good year in the Europa League, you're going to get a big move anyway. It'll be interesting. I think that's my time ticking bomb thing in my head, thinking May's coming. Every single time I do a show, May's closer. In fact, I won't even say May, I'll say March, because I think you probably know roughly. Anyway, talking about Solly, it looks like
nice segue there.
It looks like he's going to be back for Friday.
Yeah, is that
in the squad?
Yeah.
By Fabian Hertzler's words, not mine.
Right. Okay.
Thoughts?
Okay. Thoughts? Yeah, amazing. I mean, the question is, I mean, I love him. The question is, is he gonna? Can the squad have him now?
The expectations are low for him, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's intense. And maybe it's like the perfect time for him to come back. And you know what? I think it's actually a really good thing to have like a Brighton legend like come back into the squad, and just like give just give a sense of sort of like a bit of a sort of workhorse and like a really reliable character in the squad who can, I don't know, I think the fans will really get behind that, and that would just give a huge bolster of energy to everyone, because obviously, like, the players are probably aware that the fans are a bit pissed off. So
see, that
getting
senior
March
maybe that
in,
you're saying, the experience side that, maybe
I
you
think
feel
relatively
like
March is senior.
he is the senior, isn't he now?
He's been here for so long, and like he's obviously like he's from around here, so like everyone loves him, and just the burst of energy that he'll give to the squad, I think will be like a perfect thing. Sometimes it just takes one change that can just really change the whole mentality of everything, and
It'll be a
things just
massive
click.
boost. Absolutely,
Of course, it'd be huge, and also not just about how he affects the other players, but what he will bring to it, like in terms of his just creating chances. Like, he's so dangerous and just can consistently deliver them. Yao Pedro's, amongst many other things, like he's such a great poacher.
Yeah,
and I think
he's
having someone who can really
winner,
deliver,
yeah,
he gets you those 3 points where you didn't really like think you'd get it, and it's a bit messy, or it's amazing, but it's good. So I think it'll be really great. I'm so looking forward to having him back. I hope he's fit. I mean, I hope he hasn't lost a bit of it because of his injury.
And starts at wing back, I'm happy.
Yeah, I know. It's just so tough because when you've been out for that long, like you can really knock your confidence and your pace more than anything. Yeah, really. Is that like he could come back and he's just a little bit slower and he doesn't quite get in sixth gear and he's just kind of holding back a bit.
As you say, we've probably got the squad now to get away with him maybe suffering for it a little bit. We've got Minte, we've got Mitoma, we've got XYZ, and Brian Gruder as well made his full debut and did a decent job as well.
I mean, who's he going to replace?
That's it. So I don't think that the expectation, I don't think you go and sign 50, 60 million pound worth of wingers. No. If you expect Solly to be back and fighting again. I think that Solly, I feel like he's gone beyond my my words of being superb in the last couple of years. And I think that this period that he's been out for has been really, really difficult for him, but testament to him for getting back in the way he has. I thought he was pretty much written off to not play for us again. I had it in my head that he wouldn't play for us again. I thought I'd be shocked if Solly does. And the fact he's going to be in the squad is a miracle, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned. I was at that City game. I remember hearing that scream back.
My knee's gone.
And that it's horrible. I remember being in the train afterwards, just listening to it, thinking that's horrible.
It's so brutal. It's like when people really hurt themselves. It's not like the films. It's like it's just so realistic, and you're like, oh my god, it's like that sounds like it.
And I think that's it. The expectation of Solly is purely just getting the team. If you can play again, if he scores again, that would be unbelievable. That'd be the best Christmas present ever if he scored again.
Imagine.
But it's probably not going to happen. That would be a very Merry Christmas if Solly could do that.
Merry Christmas.
But we'll see anyway. I don't want to big up him. I feel like genuinely I really want to keep it as humble amongst the fan base as possible if I can. Please don't expect too much of Solly. Please don't put too much pressure on him, because we cannot be relying on him to score, assist, XYZ. He is just here and coming back, and that's in itself is a fantastic thing. I think we're pretty much there with everything. What's on the agenda, Charlie?
The agenda, so we've been recording a lot, doing a lot of recording, getting some new music ready, and we've got a big year next year. Getting very excited. We've just moved back to Brighton, actually. Yeah. So we've been living up in London for a while, and we've just come back, which is awesome. So it's been good. I'm now living like 10 minutes from the ground, so
beautiful.
Get to go to the games a lot more. So that's wicked.
Need to get some of the music in the ground. That's
what we need, man.
If anyone's listening, if anyone can help with that, that's what needs to happen. Do it.
Yeah, get it in.
And also I'll have a new intro, which would be quite cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. So, as soon as there's some more music out there,
whatever that happens,
it's yours. Yeah.
But Charlie, you've been an absolute pleasure today.
No, thanks very much for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed the Guinness.
Enjoyed the Guinness. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you too, mate.
Have a lovely one.
We've pretty much finished. I didn't split the G. I'm really sorry.
No, but Solly March is going to score on. So very happy New Year. So no pressure, Solly.
I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Thank you all for the support this year. It's been absolutely brilliant. And make sure you go give Chappaqua Wrestling and Charlie a stream. I'll leave all this stuff in the description. Merry Christmas to you all, and hopefully we can turn it around and please beat Brentford. Goodbye.